feel it in the air whenever it happens. When the left gets so apoplectic, they just go crazy. You know there's some abortion law reason that they're doing so. And indeed, this was the latest, the Texas abortion law. But there's something really interesting and unique about this Texas abortion law that we need to understand. And to help us do that, Parshall Perry is here, legal fellow at the Wonderful Heritage Foundation. Ms. Perry, how are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
We're grateful you're here. So let's start with what the Texas law says and does, and then we'll get to the Supreme Court and what they did, right? So what is this law, and why is it different than other laws?
So the Texas heartbeat law bans abortions after 6 weeks when a fetal heartbeat is generally detected. But it does one more thing. It prevents government officials from actually enforcing the law. So this law wouldn't be enforced by the Texas Attorney General, as would be the case generally with most state prohibitions. Instead, it deputizes citizens to be able to bring their own actions against enforcement if they have knowledge that an individual is performing an abortion or aiding and abetting an abortion, and they can actually recover fees of up to $10,000 and attorney's costs. So it's not the first time in federal law that we've seen something like this. Now, this is a state attempting deputization, but there is sort of a corollary with federal law in an act called the False Claims Act. It's an act that allows an individual who sees fraud being perpetrated on the federal government to recover themselves. It's a whistleblower statute. And in many respects, that's what this precise law is as well. But it elicited a very strange lawsuit. A number of Texas abortion providers decided that they were going to sue just a single judge, one that they thought might actually enforce this law, as well as a private individual who was a pro-life activist in the state of Texas. Now, one had signed an affidavit saying he had no intention of bringing an enforcement action, and the judge, by the terms of the law itself, couldn't bring an enforcement action. So it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. They waited until very nearly the expiration of the time period before the law was to go into effect, and then requested emergency relief to get it in front of the Supreme Court during what's known as its shadow docket before they consider their formal beginning of their term. And the Supreme Court, in a very contentious 5-4 decision, said, we don't find any procedural ability to be able to intervene here. We don't get to enjoin laws. All we do is enjoin individuals from enforcing laws. And here you haven't proven to us that either individual will enforce. Not only that, you haven't proven to us that we have to get involved on an emergency basis. You haven't proved that you will be injured in very short order. So they did the right thing, despite the fact that the 4 moderate and liberal justices were exceptionally upset, called it a stunning decision, that it was a gutting of Roe versus Wade, and really it was nothing of the kind.
Let's go to the very beginning. So normally a law is passed like this, and let's say the law says you can't perform an abortion after 6 weeks, and someone does, a doctor does perform. So you're saying the Attorney General, so the state, would go after the doctor. That's how that normally happens.
Right. That's exactly how it would happen normally, because they are the enforcement agents. They're the law enforcement agency for the state itself. But that's not how this law operates. Here it relies on the millions of Texan individual citizens to actually bring enforcement actions. And how do you certify a class? How would Planned Parenthood sue every one of Texas's citizens? Well, it's impractical and impossible. So they're really sort of hamstrung here, which is part of the reason that this piece of legislation was a bit of a stroke of brilliance.
So let's say this is enacted. What would it look like? So if I lived in Texas, could I sue a doctor who's performing an abortion?
Correct.
Even if I have nothing to do with the situation personally.
Absolutely. If you have knowledge of it, that individual has violated the terms of that law, has performed an abortion past that 6-week time period, then you could bring a civil enforcement action. Now, it's important to know that these are not criminal statutes. These are simply tort actions. They're fines that allow an individual to be able to recover a fee and bring to the attention of the enforcement individuals, the other individuals in that state, that, hey guys, this abortionist is actually violating the law on a regular basis. It was designed to put these abortion clinics out of business.
Bingo. So so everyone could sue, right? It's not just one person could sue. Everyone in Texas could sue. Okay, so obviously they couldn't continue to do what they do. Okay. Why could the original way laws are normally done, why could that go to the Supreme Court, but this couldn't? I guess that's a long way of saying, why did Texas do it this way? Like, what do they prevent from happening in the future by doing it this way? Does that make sense?
Well, they know what's on the docket for this coming Supreme Court term, and that's a case called Dobbs versus Jackson Hole Women's Health. That is a case in which the Supreme Court will actually consider the merits of a 15-week ban on abortion, not a procedural issue, but truly the issue of whether or not you can ban abortion prior to viability, which is the standard that was set forth in Planned Parenthood versus Casey. So they will, for the first time, be forced with coming to terms with, why did we pick viability as the standard by which to judge all abortion restrictions? So knowing that there is a big merits decision on the docket for later this fall, Texas's aim here was to start bankrupting a lot of these abortion providers, and at least in the short term, to protect unborn Texas lives.
Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.